We are continuing our study on Acts, and this week we will be talking about Acts 12. And in Acts 12, we know that there was a King Herod, and that he induced persecution against the church, and he began to really harm the church. And we know that many times what happens with these kings at that particular time, you know, they got political power from it. And so this is what happened here in this particular chapter, is that he used this as political power because it pleased the Jews, and it pleased many people. Because it talks here, he said, he even had Jacob, which is John's brother, beheaded. He did that purposely in order to please the people. And it said, when he realized how much this pleased the Jewish leaders, he had Peter arrested and thrown into prison during the feast of Passover. Now, let me explain this a little bit before I go in further. He didn't want to take him, he didn't want to do anything to him because there's a lot of people there for Passover. So he waited. He kind of waited. And then he realized, okay, this is pleasing them. Let's get him arrested at least. He wouldn't do anything to him during that time. He wanted to wait until afterwards. What's interesting about this is that the scripture tells us here that 16 soldiers were assigned to guard him until Herod could bring him to public trial. See, he didn't want to bring him to public trial while the Passover was going on, because he knew a lot of those people would be against it. And so he wanted to please the Jewish leaders. So he had him arrested, and then he kind of waited until after this feast was over. But I find it kind of curious, 16 soldiers for one man. It reminds me of some things that's going on in the country today. They're putting all of these National Guard out there, for what? For what purpose is all of that? And it's all perceived as something that is not accurate. And yet, what were they thinking? 16 soldiers to guard one man. Well, let me tell you why. They did this because they'd heard about all of the miracles and how Peter had gotten out of prison earlier. There was a lot of talk about this. And so it says that, the church went into a season of intense interception. The church went into a season of intense intercession, asking God to free him. And this is the piece of this, is that I think we're doing the same thing as a church today because of what's going on, and because of the craziness of all this. The church needs to go into intercession to free us, to free states, to free our nation from what's going on. And it's interesting because Peter just went along with it, because you're going to see later. It's kind of interesting how the perceptions are all put out there, but they're not actually accurate in those perceptions. So as he goes on here, you remember it talks about him. He was chained. Okay, he was chained. Had all these guards. And the night before Herod planned to bring him to trial, he made sure that Peter was securely bound with 2 chains. He was sound asleep between 2 soldiers, with additional guards stationed outside his cell door. Yeah. Wow. I want to make sure, says Herod. See, we can try to make sure all kinds of things in the flesh, but when God enters in, he answers him. When God hears our prayers, he answers those prayers. Because out of that intercession, this is what happened. Verse 7. When all at once a suddenly occurred. All at once an angel of the Lord appeared, filling his prison cell with a brilliant light. The angel struck Peter on his side to awaken him and said, "Hurry up, let's go." And instantly what happens is that the chains fell off in his wrist. Not bound by anything here in the natural, are we? When God does it. The angel told him, "Get dressed, put on your sandals, bring your cloak, and follow me." So Peter did that. Peter left the cell and followed the angel, even though he thought it was just a dream. See, we can think that we are in a dream, but here we go, when God's in this thing. I mean, these soldiers beside him didn't wake up. The guards that were at the stationed out front didn't. I mean, all those 16 soldiers, none of them. He didn't. I mean, he walked right past all of them. And because Peter says it just seemed so unreal. He couldn't believe what was really happening. See, when God moves in and does those miracles, we're the same way. We're startled. We're shocked by how God does this so easily for us. We need to increase our trust and faith in him and believe. And it said they walked unseen past the first guard post, then the second guard post, before coming to the iron gate that leads to the city. And the gate just swung open all by itself right in front of them. Wow. Wow. See, sometimes we don't even realize or see all that God can do. And they went down into the city, and this is where the angel disappeared. And then Peter says, "Oh my goodness, I'm not having a dream. This is real. I'm out of the jail." And so he goes to where the home of Mary, where they're praying, okay? And it's interesting too, I find that here they are, it's in the middle of the night, and they're still praying. They didn't put a time limit on. I mean, sometimes that's what we do, don't we? We only think, oh, let's go pray for an hour. Or let's go pray for an hour and a half. But here they are really interceding. See, she thought when the young girl went to answer the door, she thought it was his angel. It wasn't. She recognized Peter's voice, but she thought he was an angel. And so she was so shocked she ran inside and didn't even realize. That's how we operate, isn't it? That's how we operate. And so what happens is he's outside and he's waiting to get in. And of course they realized, oh my goodness, it is Peter. He's out. And then he shared with them all that had taken place. It's just this constant prayer. We need it. When this verse for that intercession, that prayer means stretching out all you can for something. This is the same of Jesus when he was in the garden. He was praying. He was praying so deeply because he didn't want to go through what he had to go through, but he knew he had to do this, so he went into intercession and he prayed deeply. It's the same kind of prayer. It's when our hearts get really, really passionate about something and press into the level that what we care about, God cares about. And he comes and he answers our prayer. Now, the first sign of daylight, this is verse 18, the prison guards were in a tremendous uproar because of Peter's disappearance. And Herod ordered a thorough search for him, but no one could find him. And sadly, he was so upset about this and so crazy about some of this. I think the same things are going on today. I mean, he ordered them to be executed. He executed the guards, and yet they did nothing. They did nothing And I find that sometimes what we're experiencing today is that they're so full of the hatred and the evil of trying to stop the movement of God, that they will do anything, even harm people that God, wasn't their fault. It wasn't their fault. We have to be so careful. And yet we need to pray. This is how God did this. Now, Herod left. He left the providence. And what happens is he became engaged in a violent dispute with the people of another Tyre and Sidon. And they sent a united delegation to Caesarea to appeal to him and reconcile their differences with the king. For Herod controlled their food supply. First, they enlisted the support of his trusted personal assistant, who secured them an appointment with the king. This is governmental control. This is government control to a max. It's something that we're beginning to experience ourselves. And they wanted to go before and position him. Now, this is what's scary to me. Because when Herod came forth, you see, he was in his regal outfit. He was sitting on his elevated throne. He delivered this amazing speech to the people. At the end, the people gave him a round